Hello and welcome to week 4 in 5345. We're understanding that a lot of you are kind of frustrated with the amount of work and reading for this session in this week. So we are going to give you an overview right currently instead of waiting till the web conference, and we're going to try that and see if that kind of helps and get you started so you don't have to wait until the web conference. So let's talk about the first thing, the discussion board, because that's going to be due first. So this week's discussion board is designed differently to kind of give you interaction between each other that we have not had in the past. So you are going to submit a piece of documentation on a teacher that we're working with this week that you have evidence within this template. At the very end of the assignment, you will note that you will give 3 pieces of documentation as part of the assignment. So you're going to choose one of those, put it in the discussion board post on Thursday. One of your peers is going to give you feedback on that, very specific feedback as to how to correct it and make it better to submit for your assignment. So an example would be if you choose a note to file. When you're looking over your peers, you might notice that the wording is more opinionated rather than fact. So you might tell them, this statement sounds like an opinion, so you would want to list a fact to make this a stronger piece of documentation. Or you miss putting the timeline or the date, the teacher's name, anything like that that you need to make that a strong piece of documentation. So you're going to give very specific feedback as your follow through to the discussion board. Again, the directions say respond to 2. The rubric says respond to 1. So we're going to defer to the rubric, and you're only going to have to respond to 1. So remember that as of last week. We noted that, and so we will honor the rubric and you will respond to 1. We did not change it in the directions, but we are changing it now as we're telling you verbally that you will only have to respond to 1 colleague about their document and giving them feedback. So when you look at the week 4 assignment, again, this rubric is going to be very important to you. It gives you very specific information about what you need to do to get maximum points, such as how many citations you're going to need, which is a little different for this week. So look through it and make sure that you know exactly what you've got to do to get maximum points. Let's look at part 1. Part 1 really looks at that teacher evaluation process. So again, you're going to read the teacher or look over the teacher appraiser handbook and the rubric. You do not have to know it word for word. You just need to get some background knowledge on the teacher appraisal process. So that's why we're asking you to look over the teacher handbook. So look over that teacher handbook, look at the T-test rubric, be familiar with some of the language, some of the components, and the things that happen within those 2 documents. You have a chart here. You have the dimensions that are listed for you from the T-test rubric. You're going to tell me sources of where you're going to gather evidence in this column. Provide 2 examples of the evidence in this column along with a reflection question that will help get the teacher thinking about their process in the classroom. So, for example, this is dimension 1.1. Where are you going to collect that evidence from? So this is on standards and alignment. So where are you going to find information on their alignment to the curriculum? Good place would be lesson plans. So that would be a source. You type in lesson plans. So look at your rubric, your T-test rubric. It'll give you some guidelines as to where you're going to collect some. You may also get it in a pre-conference when you have that conference with the teacher and talk about what they're going to do. Provide examples. So one example may be during the pre-conference, the teacher outlined where the class was in the unit of study. That would be some evidence of examples of some evidence. Sorry about that. Then you would ask them a reflection question like, how do you go about deciding what materials you're going to use when to meet the objective for this lesson? So that might be a reflection question, something along those lines. So don't overthink it. Just think about what you could ask a teacher in order to get them thinking about their practice in the classroom. Part B is where you're going to look at the Texas Documentation Handbook. You've got a couple of chapters to read there. You've got several chapters to read within the Rethinking Teacher Supervision and Evaluation. So look over that. The Rethinking Teacher Supervision and Evaluation pretty much lays out a nice plan for teacher evaluation, so that should definitely help you with this assignment. I know several of you were very confused over the textbooks. The bookstore didn't help us. They didn't quite get things cleared off as we changed things over to the new course. So if you did not get that, you might say if a friend will let you borrow their copy and look at it, or it might be in the library, or there definitely is a Kindle version that would be helpful, because it is going to line everything out. The thing I like about this book is Marshall really lays out what worked well, what didn't work well, kind of how they had to tweak and massage things to make it work, how she had to make it work on her campus. So it's a great book that I think will be a great resource for you to make an overall comprehensive teacher evaluation system on your campus. So you will want to get that book, and eventually you'll want to read the whole book, because it is a great read and a great book. So you're going to give a description of a system of teacher evaluation, feedback, and documentation. So be sure that you include timelines, the legal parts. If you look at the rubric, look at how many citations you need to get all the points. Think about your district policy, legal ramifications if you don't do the system correctly. So again, your readings will help guide that process. You're going to type your information in this. It's a system of documentation and evaluation system. Part 2, probably my favorite part of this week, growth and fixed mindset. This is so important to the culture of your campus, how teachers approach things, whether teachers work with you or don't work with you, how you approach teachers even. Your mindset has a big piece in the culture and how the evaluation system goes and how it is used. So you've got a chart here, once you read those 2 articles, to fill out about characteristics and behaviors and choose the type of mindset. So you put growth or fixed. That part will go pretty quickly for you. Then we have the major components of T-TESS. So you're going to tell me a teacher with a fixed mindset, what's that going to look like in goal setting? With a growth mindset, what characteristics going to be there in goal setting? This one seems to be where we're having major issues, people getting confused and not understanding. Leadership skills are any of those skills you need as a leader to be successful. So what skills are you going to need as a principal to be successful during goal setting? Let me give you some examples. Conversational skills, questioning skills, time management skills, documentation skills, support and follow-up skills. Think about those things, and those things are what you're going to put in this section here. Don't overthink it. Section B is where you're going to answer the questions that are within here. Again, think about that scholarly writing, citations, and APA format. You do not have to double space. Again, you do not have to double space. Single spacing is fine. Get your APA format and citations as close as you can to it, and then you will kind of start getting yourself in that mindset of academic writing. Part 3 of the assignment looks more at the post-conference and refinement plan. So we've given you some evidence on a teacher that's really kind of struggling, so you're going to want to review it. Look at the rubric, think how they're going to score out. Pick a lower level to create a refinement plan. Put your refinement area there. So what do they need to work on? What do they need to be able to do after they finish this post-conference plan? 3 questions. What 3 questions are you going to ask this teacher to get them to reflect on their practices in this area of refinement to make it better? Evidence. Go back up here, pick out the evidence you have, put it here. Then how are you going to suggest or model for them to improve? So you got to come up, if you've found a refinement plan and you find that they need to work on it, then you're going to have to tell them or model for them how you want them to improve and what your expectations are. So that's what you're going to put there. Part B, again, is that documentation process. So again, use all your readings, and you're going to create 3 specific types of documentation: a note to file, a specific incident, and a final chance. So you can either type them in that box, you can create them in Word and cut and paste them in there, however you would like to do that. Be sure you look at the correct wording that's in the Texas Documentation Handbook, that you include all the components that are there. One of those you're going to put in your discussion board again to get feedback from a peer before you put it here for final grading. With that final chance memorandum, I did have a question whether you needed to put the commentary and evidence there, and yes, you do. If not, that's not a final chance memorandum, because you've got to have all those pieces there for it to be a final chance memorandum that will stand up in a grievance or legal processes. So be sure that you put all that information in there and you follow those to the letter. That will just help you kind of get in that mindset of documentation and doing it correctly. So I know there is a lot of reading. There's a lot of background that goes into teacher evaluation. There's really a lot of soul searching into what you need to do in order to have the skills you need to roll out that process and be successful. Mindset is a big key piece of that. So that's why we left that in this week. You will find that it's much like eating an elephant. You don't eat them all at once. You take it in small chunks. So take this week's work in small chunks. Just be mindful that you've got to have that documentation letter or memo, whatever you choose for your discussion board. So you may want to start there. Just take it with that growth mindset. Know that you're not going to know it all. You're not going to be perfect. But you're learning, and as long as you're learning, then we're making progress and you're moving towards being that leader that you want to be. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any specific questions that we did not answer in this section, email your section professor or your IA. But again, big key takeaways: only respond to one colleague on the discussion board post as per the rubric. Look at your rubric closely. It gives you guidelines as to what you need to get maximum points. Yes, there is a lot of reading, but you need that for background in order to do an effective piece of writing on a documentation or the evaluation process. So it's key to what you do. Reminder that this is a 5-week course, and it's really giving you the content of a 15-week course. So we did kind of had to condense things down and put the most important things in there. So it is a lot, but you can do this. We believe in you. We know you can do this, but don't hesitate to reach out with us to us if you have a specific question. So have a great week, and we will see you on Tuesday.